on Veterans Day, reliving a young soldier's journey through his letters. On September 25, 1918, Gabriel D. Howell, the privateering company of the 306th Infantry, American Expeditionary Force, found a relatively quiet place to write a letter. He had been at the Western Front for 5 months. Though Gabriel had seen some battle, he'd spent most of his time in France engaged in the monotonous work of any soldier, marching and training. He apologized that his note to Mrs. Edward Sweeley of Washington, D.C., was a brief one. He wrote, "Just received an order to get ready for business, so I hope you will excuse this short note this time. I will write you as soon as the action is finished." He folded the letter, sealed it inside an envelope, mailed it, then readied himself for an advance through the Argonne Forest to help push the Germans beyond the Meuse River. Buried treasures. Moyna Ratliff lives in a lovely 1920s house on a hill overlooking the George Washington Masonic National Memorial in Alexandria. She retired from the federal government and runs a bed and breakfast called the Treasure House. In the summer of 2009, the air conditioning stopped working. After the workmen were done poking around in the attic, one checked in with Moyna. "By the way," he said, "we found some old papers under the insulation. Do you want them?" Moyna said, "You bet." The stack of papers included 8 letters from Gabriel D. Howell. Some were brittle, ripping as she pulled them from their envelopes and unfolded them. But the writing on each was still legible. They were all addressed to a Mrs. Sweeley, who lived in Portsmouth, PA, and Washington. After the war, her family moved to the house Moyna would later own. Writing on stationery provided by the Knights of Columbus or the YMCA, Gabriel asked after Mrs. Sweeley's husband, Edward, and daughter, Miss Helen. He described life at Camp Upton on Long Island, where he spent more than a year training. He wrote about his somewhat mediocre shooting prowess. "I got 35 out of 50, so you see there is room for improvement," and speculated that German saboteurs were at work in Newark. Then they set fire to the barge lying in the river, which spread to a shipyard. In 1917, he sent Mrs. Sweeley a New Year's card designed by a fellow private. Next to an embossed image of the regimental crest was printed, "Our New Year's wish. To the Allies, peace through victory. To the enemy, expiation through defeat. To our regiment, the strength to conquer." The letters bore the formality of the era. Gabriel began most the same way. "Just a line hoping it finds you all in the best of health as it leaves me thus at the present, but we're also personable." He thanked Mrs. Sweeley for her gifts, cigarettes, a cake, a medal, probably a St. Christopher medal, that he promised to wear always. "Not being a Catholic, I am sure it makes no difference," he wrote on January 4, 1918. Gabriel was born in England. He emigrated from Britain in 1913, arriving at Ellis Island aboard a ship called the Caledonia. With one letter, Gabriel included a photograph, apparently lost, of himself with some fellow soldiers. He wrote, "They are all American-born fellows but myself. But I am a citizen, so what's the difference?